Welcome to the third report to the nation of the Economic Growth Council. This, as you know, is a body appointed by Prime Minister, the Honorable Andrew Holness, in April 2016 to consult widely and advise Cabinet on a collection of broad platform policies and reform that would facilitate, would catalyze economic growth. The EGC, in turn, recommended 8 growth initiatives and 111 sub-initiatives to the Cabinet last year, September, and has been working with a range of stakeholders to ensure Jamaica achieves 5% GDP growth by the year 2020. This is the goal, 5 in 4. That's a goal set by our chairman, the Honorable Michael Lee Chin, who will this evening present the third quarterly report to the nation. I am Maureen Denton, Executive Director and Head of the Secretariat of the Economic Growth Council, and I have the honor of being your moderator for this event. Permit me to begin by introducing the persons on the platform. Beginning on my right, who actually needs no introduction, is the Honorable Michael Lee Chin. And beside him, also not really needing an introduction, is Council Member Paula Kerr-Jarrett. And on the left, he definitely needs introduction. Patrick Hilton, Council Member, and of course, Senator Cavan Gale, who I assume Parliament has finished and you got out? Regrettable, quite a few of our EGC members, including Ambassador Nigel Clark, who is traveling with the Prime Minister, Honorable Hugh Hart, Adam Stewart, Philip Gore, and Mr. Hilton, who actually took Hill today, are unavoidably absent. In the audience, we have the chairs of the special working groups established by the EGC. I'd like to recognize very hardworking Chairman of the Citizen Security and Public Safety Committee, Major General Anthony Anderson. Milverton Reynolds, who is the Chairman of the Access to Finance Committee. Dr. David Panton, Diaspora Engagement Committee, and he's been busy all week with diaspora events. Great job, David. And Helene Davis-White, who is in charge of immigration policy, is also absent. I want to do a special welcome to Honorable Delroy Chuck, Minister of Justice, Honorable Favour Williams, Minister of State in the Ministry of Finance. Thank you both for all the hard work you have been doing with us. She was on the phone with me, was it 6 or 7 o'clock this morning? And Senator Mark Golden, representing the Leader of the Opposition, Dr. Peter Phillips. I want to also give special welcome to members of the Diplomatic Corps. His Excellency Alexis Eduardo Sandoval Cejar, Ambassador of Panama. His Excellency Carlos Alberto Den Artog, Ambassador of Brazil. His Excellency Ariel Fernandez, Ambassador of Argentina. Ambassador Young Gyu Lee, Ambassador of Korea. Mr. Bruno Puezat, Resident Representative of the United Nations Development Program. Ms. Rebecca Robinson, Acting Mission Director, USAID. And a warm welcome to Ms. Galina Sotirova, Head of Mission for the World Bank, and all the support we have been getting recently and in the past from her. Major General Rocky Meade, my star performer and Chief of the Defense Staff. And Commissioner, thank you. I know you have had a long day today, so thanks very much for coming. George Coelho, Commissioner of Police. Representatives of the public and private sectors, trade unions, the security, finance, agriculture, and other sectors, heads of academia and students of the University of the West Indies, Mona, University of Technology, the University College of the Caribbean, Kingston, and Northern Caribbean University, Mandeville. We also welcome our audiences on CVM Television, who is viewing this live, and viewers of our live stream. Ladies and gentlemen, the EGC in just over a year has made a mark for itself as a motivating force in our quest to achieve growth. Our success has been due to the energy and dynamism of our council members and their unwavering commitment to Jamaica, land we love. Paula Kerr-Jarrett is one of our most passionate advocates, and I invite her to welcome you officially.
Thanks, Maureen. I was just about to hand it straight over to the chairman because you've actually done my job beautifully. So thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. I'm just going to be very brief. Maureen welcomed everyone here, those watching by television. We are all encouraged by what we have seen in the last year, but of course there's always room for improvement. And I just want to outline very quickly that each one of us are passionate Jamaicans. When I saw the chairman, I haven't seen him for 6 weeks. I've been traveling with personal business and other things. He said to me, Paula, are you sure that you haven't lost the fire? I said, I cannot, because I'm a Jamaican. And none of us can afford to give up the fight. This is our nation. We're committed to Jamaica getting growth. It's about time that we went from the macroeconomic stability, which is fantastic, and start to build on the foundation that we've been provided for. And I just want to say a few things here. I have some notes. And basically, we have been led into literally hundreds of meetings over the last year with our very energetic and able and dynamic chairperson. He actually has kept us focused in many ways and helped us to keep going, even when we came across all the detractors and all the things that made it very difficult to do business in Jamaica, something that we all recognize. But we need to go from this phase right now, which is convening and discussing, to actually implementing and seeing things happen at a quicker pace. Because Jamaica can get growth. It is something that many of us don't recognize. We've never seen it, but it is possible. Other nations have done it. We surely can. So I want to say tonight, we are going to take a different direction after tonight. We are going into phase 2. It's going to be implementation. There is going to have to be more accountability by the government, by the agencies, by the opposition, to agree on consensus so that we can ensure that we work together as one team, Team Jamaica. It's not about me or you or individuals. We have to work as a nation. That we are as strong as our weakest link. And so I want to encourage everybody tonight, particularly those watching. Thank you for those showing up tonight, but those watching and sitting back, be counted. Don't just be another casualty in the lack of growth in Jamaica. Be counted, give it your everything, give it your all, because this is our nation, and we can continue to grow and grow exponentially if we all decide and make up our minds to make the EGC a success and make Jamaica a success so that we can continue to prosper and thrive as a nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. As I said, one of our most passionate and ardent EGC council member. Ladies and gentlemen, since April 27, 2016, when the EGC was established, 5 in 4, and it's really now 5 in 3, has become a mantra across Jamaica. The vision of the council for 5% growth within 4 years, 2016 to 2020, has catalyzed new energy and purpose across sectors, genders, and age group. The chair of the Economic Growth Council, the Honorable Michael Lee Chin, has had, of course, a seminal role in articulating this vision. I now invite our chairman to deliver the EGC's third report to the nation.
Thank you very much, Maureen. Thank you very much for being here, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. So, you know, why are we so motivated? Why are we so optimistic that now is the time? Well, we're all mad as hell at ourselves for impaling ourselves over the last many decades. We are excited today because the table is now set, firstly, because we're mad at ourselves. And only when you become mad at yourself, you realize, I can do better. I have to do better. I'm going to change. We are at that point in our history. The table is set because our fiscal house is less shambled, less ransacked. Starting with the previous administration, who did the tough job of getting the foundation set. So I want to make sure we acknowledge the foundation built by the previous administration. The table is set because today, because of that foundation, inflation is at a historic low. The table is set because our NIR is improving, our currency has stabilized, energy prices down, telecom prices down by 90%. Confidence is returning. And the table is set because we have the absolute support of our multilateral partners. And finally, the table is set because the government has accepted its role, singular, enable and facilitate. Government enables and facilitates, private sector will deliver growth. That's it. That's the partnership we have here. Now, over the last 15 months, since we have been at this, I'm still being asked, what does 5% GDP growth mean to me as a citizen, as a doctor, as a lawyer, as an accountant, as a vendor on the street? What does 5% GDP growth mean to me? Because over the last more than a generation, we have not experienced growth. So I don't know what growth is. So what is growth? Well, it will be easier to explain what it is we have experienced. And growth is the opposite of what we have experienced. So what have we experienced? Over the last 20 years, 25 years, we have had a devaluation of all our assets because of stagnation. That's what we are accustomed to. We have had a high level of crime because of stagnation. We have had a poverty spiral because of stagnation, no growth. We have had low confidence because of stagnation. We have had emigration because of stagnation. We have had corruption because of stagnation. We have had poorly educated graduates because of stagnation. We have a decimation of our middle class because of stagnation. We have had devaluation of societal values because of stagnation. We have had a devaluation of our currency because of stagnation. And lastly, we have had we have built a nation of apathy because of stagnation. So that's what our young people, this generation, have grown accustomed to. Fortunately, I was blessed. I was born in an era when we had growth. And I still remember what growth is. And all of us on this council member have benefited from growth. That's the reason why we are passionate about reigniting growth, so then this generation can feel it, taste it, hear it, smell it. So, growth will reverse all of those characteristics that I've mentioned. Having growth, having 5% GDP growth, will revalue all our assets. Having 5% growth will reduce crime, will reduce or eliminate the poverty spiral. Growth will rebuild confidence. Growth will minimize immigration. In fact, hopefully have immigration. Growth will minimize corruption. Growth will give us the opportunity to have better educated graduates. Growth will rebuild our middle class. Growth will also revalue societal values. Growth will also strengthen our currency. And growth will lead us from being an apathetic nation to one that is pumped, energetic, optimistic and confident. So having growth is an imperative that is most important. So what have we done over the last 15 months? What was the methodology we have been using? We have listened to over 155 stakeholders of Jamaica. We have designed and advised on a plan. We are selling and motivating so that it becomes tangible to all of us. And we have to monitor and report to the nation, which is what we're doing here tonight. Now, this brings me to a story that is riveted firmly in my mind. About 15 years ago, I was in Harlem being given an award. And that night, the Reverend Calvin Butts, a reverend from the Abyssinian Baptist Church, as he was presiding over the function, he said, "Did you realize that over the last 40 years, there's only been one high school built in New York?" I was aghast. One high school built in New York? In Harlem. In Harlem, sorry. And when Harlem has fantastic location, it abuts Hyde Park? Central Park. It abuts Central Park. Impossible. Yes. And he continued by saying, it was not built by the federal government. It was not built by the state government, nor the city government. It was built by the Abyssinian Development Corporation. So I thought, wow, gentrification starts from within. It starts from within. And he continued by saying, now that we have had Harlem gentrified, the citizens, the Harlemites, the natives are being displaced because of Harlem's great location. The wider community of Manhattan is now invading Harlem. And because the Harlemites were not traditional asset owners, they were being displaced. They couldn't afford it anymore. When I heard that, I got nervous because we are working very hard to gentrify Jamaica. And Jamaica is going to be gentrified. We're going to get 5 and 4. And once we get 5 and 4, if we all are not asset owners, we too will be displaced. We won't be able to afford Jamaica. So, ladies and gentlemen, I implore you to take a lesson from the Harlem story, because 5 and 4 is coming. If you assume 5 and 4 will be realized, your behavior will be totally different from if you have no confidence in it being realized. The second story that really rings a bell with me and is very relevant today was from Quincy, Florida. Quincy, Florida, most people don't know of Quincy, Florida, but in 1935, there was this American banker. His name is Mr. Pat Monroe. He came from Atlanta. And when he got to Quincy, Florida, in his regular banking day, he would say to every citizen of Quincy, Florida, look, Coca-Cola stock has fallen from $40, it's now $19. Buy shares of Coca-Cola stock. It's cheap. It's going to revalue. Ladies and gentlemen, he not only implored his customers to buy shares, he lent them money to buy shares. $19 stock in 1935, 85 years ago. 87 years ago. What do you think it's worth today? 19? And to put things in perspective, the average salary in the weekly salary in the United States in 1935 would have been $19 per week. So what do you think that $19 stock is worth today with dividends reinvested? Quickly, $10 million US. $10 million US. Quincy, Florida, because of the efforts of one man, Mr. Pat Monroe, became the only city in the United States to have sidestepped every single recession because it had dividend flows coming into the city. Quincy, Florida became the city of millionaires and the wealthiest city in the United States on a per capita basis. So the question is, why can't we make Jamaica Quincy-like? Why can't we? And we can. Because the conditions are there for great asset purchases today. Assets are cheap. we should be buying stocks, we should be buying real estate to make sure we learn from the mistakes of the Harlemites. Okay, so our job tonight is to monitor, is to report. So let me clarify that what our responsibility is. Our responsibility is not to implement. We don't have ministerial powers to implement. It is to report and to make sure and that the implementation actually gets done. But we can't do the job. That's the job of government. I just wanted to clarify that. So now for the report. The period April to June of 2017 saw the development of a framework for public debt reduction through a program of privatization and asset sales by the Ministry of Finance and Public Service. The Development Bank of Jamaica set out a protocol for the establishment of enterprise teams that handle multiple transactions and submitted to Cabinet a protocol for outsourcing the privatization of government-owned entities. During this period, the Ministry of National Security also conducted a feasibility study for the creation of a global immigration card. And the DBJ expanded access to financing through its various credit facilities and the exploration of the facility to allow unclaimed funds in the banking and insurance sector to be released to fund MSMEs. However, all the deliverables that should have been delivered were not achieved. The public procurement regulations and the handbook of public sector procedures were not completed by the May deadline. 2 of the 3 regulations have been tabled in Parliament. And the MOFPS has advised that they are actively working on the establishment of the Public Procurement Commission, which is a prerequisite for the tabling of the 3rd regulation. Public procurement is an important tool for stimulating economic growth and development. The central government and its public bodies together purchased approximately 100 billion of goods and services last year. And we are therefore urging the Ministry of Finance to urgently finalize the regulations and enact the Public Procurement Act. The EGC also notes that the UDC, Urban Development Corporation, and the Factories Corporation of Jamaica, under the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, did not submit to Cabinet a plan to divest of the 20% of their assets by the May target deadline. The MEGJC is finalizing the submissions with respect to the UDC assets, and the FSC's board is working on the list of assets to be proposed for divestment. The UDC and the FSC are behind. UDC, FCJ, step it up. Lastly, the amendment to the investment regulations to allow pension funds to invest in a wide range of products have been drafted. However, the time frame for tabling in Parliament has been extended in order to permit further analysis and consultations. This is one I'm really not happy about, because we worked very hard to get it to the point of drafting, and the momentum was aborted. So we need to make sure that this momentum is resumed. Because this will free up, pension fund reform will free up a lot of capital that can flow into our investable assets and create growth. Okay. We have set a goal of achieving 5% growth by 2020. And many have said that this is ambitious for a country which has not enjoyed appreciable growth for many decades. But we're all agreed that for Jamaica to achieve its full potential regionally and internationally, we must all stretch ourselves beyond our own expectations and chart a path to create wealth for Jamaica. Our focus is on strategy, and as we all know, to this point, strategy is 1%. Success is 1% strategy, 99% execution or implementation. And as Council Member Paula said, this is now the second phase, the implementation phase. Now, At this point, at the diaspora conference this past Tuesday, a question was asked, and the question was preceded by a comment. And the comment was, according to the eminent strategist Peter Drucker, culture will eat strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Culture will eat strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So if our culture is not right, the strategy is useless. So, sadly for us, there are some negative attitudes of our culture that have been eating away at our strategies for growth. These factors have been cited by hundreds of stakeholders as hindrances to any growth and development strategy a country may have. If we're going to achieve 5% GDP growth in 4 years, we must tackle these cultural issues once and for all. So, what are some of these issues? I'm speaking about today, there still persists a high level of corruption. Crime and violence, limited access to financing, heavy tax burden, heavy regulatory costs, limited human capital, uncompetitive business environment and red tape, political tribalism, bureaucracy, just to name a few. So these growth retardants are still alive and well. And these are issues that we have to keep front and center so that they are addressed. So these are issues that have held us captive for so many years and resulted in our today having 0.5% GDP growth over the last 20 years, 0.2 over the last 10 years. Now with all these formidable challenges and the daunting statistics, why am I so excited still? I'm excited, we're excited, because as I said, the table is set. The table is set. Our work over the last 15 months has actually excited us, because in going through 55 meetings, we realize that the stakeholders of Jamaica are ready for a change. They are most confident in what they see happening, and they are pulling their weight as best as possible. But I said it's not universal as yet. So in summary, today we have an opportunity to do what every single Jamaican has aspired to be done for Jamaica. We have an opportunity. The window is here. The table is set for us to take Jamaica from stagnation into a 5% GDP growth, which will be transformational. Us as citizens, we have an opportunity during this transformation during this transformation period, to create a lot of wealth individually, but only if we heed the Harlem experience, and only if we take we heed the Quincy, Florida experience. Mr. Pat said to his clients, look, assets are going to revalue. Make sure you own a piece of the rock. Ladies and gentlemen, take heed and make sure the train doesn't leave you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairman. As usual, delivering with all the passion that you feel about this task that you have taken on. Ladies and gentlemen, as you would imagine, the EGC's vision for growth in Jamaica has created a great deal of confidence, hope, and determination in the country. Apart from the outstanding cooperation and relationship forged between the EGC and many stakeholders, and I'd like to just pause here to really thank so many persons within the ministries, departments, and agencies that have really worked with us and helped us to monitor and to facilitate the work that they're doing. But many of our citizenry is anxious to do their part to achieve 5 in 4. In this regard, we can never overemphasize the value of cooperation and support from stakeholders in achieving 5 in 4. The progress of the program has benefited in large measure from these partnerships that have been forged between the EGC, the public and private sector, trade union, and others. Now, you may recall that when we launched last November, the Declaration of Intent, the chairman likes to refer to it as the Magna Carta. The Declaration of Intent was signed between the government of Jamaica, the Economic Growth Council, and various members from the private sector, from the Confederation, from the Union, the Confederation of Unions, the University of the West Indies, etc. And one of the first things Mr. Leachin had said when we started is we need to make sure we get as many people to buy into what we're doing. And one symbol of doing this is their signing the Declaration of Intent. And so this evening, we have a few more persons, few more entities that have agreed to sign the Declaration of Intent. I'd like to call up to the podium our good friend Mauricio Pulido from the GB Energy. And we also want to take this occasion to publicly thank you for all the work you did when we brought the former president of Colombia here. Mauricio actually flew to Colombia, accompanied the former president here, and then flew back to Colombia with him. So we really thank you for that support. And may I just ask you to step to the podium, please, to sign the Declaration of Intent. Mauricio Pulido, the Chief Executive Officer for GB Energy. Thank you. You can just stay right here. Okay. Then next I'd like to call Garfield Green, who called me to say, when is the EGC going to have its reporting event in Manchester? And I said, soon. So I'd like to invite Garfield Green from the Manchester Chamber of Commerce to please come up and sign the Declaration of Intent. Next, I would like to call up Kirk Anthony Hamilton, who put on this fabulous thing he called Destination Experience earlier this year. Young entrepreneur and someone committed to Jamaica and committed to bringing in investors into Jamaica. Kirk Anthony Hamilton. Is Robert Wright here? Okay, unfortunately he's not here. All right, may I just ask you, Chairman, to just pull together so that they can get a full picture. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it goes very quickly, doesn't it? At this time, we'd like to bring together, to bring to the podium our final speaker prior to the press conference. And he is a member of the EGC, Patrick Hilton. He will offer closing remarks. And as I said, after that, we'll have a short press conference. Mr. Hilton.
Thank you very much, Maureen. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Good Good evening. Oh, okay. I want to, first of all, just welcome GB Energy, Jamaica Solar Energy Association, Manchester Chamber of Commerce, and Destination Jamaica, who earlier signed the Declaration of Intent. I want to thank them for coming on board and for supporting this initiative. The last report of the EGC to the nation, I have been given a similar task. And I asked Maureen, why was I being given the same task? Maybe I didn't do it well enough. so I'm going to try to improve this time. But on the last occasion, I had shared with you a particular quotation which I said I liked because I thought it captured very succinctly what we're trying to do at that point, up to that point with the EGC. And it's a quotation by an American architect. I know he's one of my chairman's favorites, a gentleman by the name of Daniel Burnham. And he said simply this, and I quote, "Make no little plans. They have no magic to stir men's blood. Make big plans. Aim high in hope and work, recognizing that a noble logical diagram, once drawn, will never die, but long after we are gone, will keep on asserting itself with ever-increasing insistence." And I was making the point, ladies and gentlemen, of how important it is to have a grand aspiration. And so as I sat there this afternoon, and I was gathering my thoughts about what I would say, there is another quotation that came to mind, but this time it's in the form of a poem, which I learned very early in life. And the title of the poem is "My Wage," by a gentleman by the name of Jesse B. Rittenhouse. And it simply says, "I bargained with life for a penny, and life would pay no more. However, I begged that evening when I counted my scanty store. For life is a just employer. He gives you what you ask. But once you have set the wages, then you must bear the task. I worked for a menial's hire, only to learn dismayed that any wage I'd asked of life, life would have willingly paid." End quote. Now, what's the relevance of all of this? It is relevant, ladies and gentlemen, to the point that, which has been made by the earlier speakers, that we have to move from the phase of just wishing and aspiring to the phase of execution. We have to start to believe. And you know, it's funny, I'm a big tennis fan, so I'm not just a track and field fan. And recently, I was watching tennis. We have seen what happened at Wimbledon with Roger Federer. And when people ask Roger Federer, you know, what is the single most important contributor to the success that he experienced at the Australian Open and in Wimbledon? And he said that he believed. Yeah? So it starts with belief. Yes? So we have to believe, ladies and gentlemen, in our goal. We have to aspire towards achieving that goal, right? We have to go through the process. There's a framework which they call the 5 A's framework, right? It's adopted from a book called Beyond Performance by Scott Keller and Colin Price. And in it, they set out 5 A's for successful performance, or going beyond performance. And it applies to individuals in terms of individual goals and objectives. It applies to corporations. And I dare say it applies to countries and economies. And the first thing they say you have to do is to aspire. Yes? Because the aspiration is a big, audacious goal. And we have done that. We have said that by 2020, we want to have 5% growth on a sustainable basis. So it is essential, but it is not sufficient. And then the next A is to assess. Because we have to be honest with ourselves to understand where we are relative to where we want to be, so that we can know what we need to address if we are to fill that void. Right? So we have to go through an assessment, and we have done that. And then the third one is to architect, which is really to plan, right? And to start to set out the framework and the various components of that framework that is going to deliver on our objectives. And then the fourth one, which is really the most important one, is to act. And very often, that's where we fail, we don't act. And that's why we at the EGC have determined that in phase 2, our focus has to be on effective execution, right? And then the fifth A, for those who are interested, is to advance. So you restart the process again and take it to the next level. So ladies and gentlemen, I've listened and I know that we have challenges. I know that we have areas where there has been underperformance. There are areas where there has been strong performance. I even dare say overperformance. We have to focus on correcting the areas of underperformance, encouraging the areas of overperformance. And the last thing I'll share with you from a personal perspective is that very recently, I think it was in April of this year, one of the companies, the CEO of one of the companies that I admire the most, Amazon, released his letter to shareholders. A gentleman by the name of Jeff Bezos, who incidentally today, I'm told, slightly overtook Bill Gates as the richest man in the world, some $90.5 billion US. And the title of the letter is Day One. And in the shareholders letter, Jeff Bezos makes the point that every day is day one, right? And he also outlines a number of core principles to having a day one mindset and a day one behavior in terms of execution. Because one of the things with day one in any significant undertaking, ladies and gentlemen, if you reflect on it, when you started your first job or when you got your first big opportunity or started your business, day one was the time when you're most nervous, but you're also most enthused, right? You're motivated, you're inspired, you want to get things done. And I'm saying to you that we need to adopt a day one mindset. But most importantly, or more importantly, is to recognize that we all have the ability to make every single day, day one. Yeah? So, ladies and gentlemen, in closing, I would say to you that I trust that report presented this evening by the EGC chair served to update the nation on the path being taken to 5 and 4. As I said previously, we recognize that there are issues and challenges along the way, but we remain steadfast to our commitment of delivering 5% growth on a sustainable basis starting in the year 2020. Thank you.
I think after that we have to make him our permanent closing speaker. I think it'll be a permanent post. Thank you very much, Patrick. I just want to take a quick second to recognize 2 visitors that we have with us, and we may have many more because many of the persons from the diaspora are here. But Mr. Lee Chin invited Dr. Blau, who is a former university president in Canada, Laurier University, and Justice Michael Tuller, who is a appeals court judge in Ontario, Canada. And I was actually trying to plan a quick tour of the country for them so they could see some of the country before they left. And they said, no, Maureen, we're really here. We want to learn a lot and we want to sit and listen. So for the last 3 days and all of tomorrow, they will be in meetings, listening and exchanging ideas. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, you're invited, please, to just remain with us for a little bit longer as we ask accredited journalists to pose questions to the Economic Growth Council members that are here. Journalists, please identify yourselves and media house before asking a question. We have a question here.
Hello, good evening. Hi, Raul Pinnock, Power 106. I am just responding to what has been said here. I want to ask about two-way accountability in Jamaica. I'd say to the chairman, I think the lack of accountability is part of the reason for the apathy that you have observed. I recall when I just started working in Jamaica, Mr. Hilton's company, I think it was 2011, did very well. I heard reports of bearers taking home bonuses that were higher than most salaries in Jamaica, right? They had a good year, and an aspiration was there to, even if you could even be a bearer for Mr. Hilton, you would do well. But generally speaking in the country, if you do better than everybody else, particularly in the public sector, you get the same as everyone else, right? And we're here, the UDC, the Factories Corporation have missed their targets, and the general belief in the nation is that nothing will happen, right? Absolutely nothing. So there's no two-way accountability. And the last thing I'd ask about is capacity building. When we speak to agencies on my program, you find out that they're understaffed, they lack a lot of capacity. Why does the police force lack 3,000 members? Why in the world would Jamaica's police force be understaffed? So my question is, what are we doing about two-way accountability in the country, and why is the police force understaffed?
In terms of accountability, this is where it starts, because as you heard in my report, we are lauding those entities that have achieved and surpassed their commitments. And at the same time, we are calling out those entities who have not achieved. So in so doing, we're being as transparent as possible, and hopefully that will, nobody wants to be called out, so hopefully that will spur everybody to rise. In terms of human resource, the deficit that we have and what are we doing to address it, well, the reality is we have very, very limited fiscal space. Growth will create fiscal space, and then that opportunity will be there. But now we have to do as much as possible to substitute for deep pockets creativity. Thank you.
There's another question over there. I just want to say in the meantime, while I wait, Minister Favour Williams is there. Once she knew one of her deliveries was not made, she has been working assiduously with the procurement unit in the ministry to ensure that they are going to stay on track after this. Thanks again, Minister Williams.
Good evening. Steve Yan from Nationwide News. I want to ask Mr. Chin. All right, so you said that culture is one of those challenges that is culture or cultural issues is one of those challenges that's stifling growth. And I'm asking, what is your suggestion to address that issue?
Well, that our cultural situation is a function of decades of accepted behavior. That's the first thing. The only way that we can reverse it is for our leaders to lead by example, set high standards of ourselves, and make sure we encourage and uplift others, and then make sure that we have other people aspire to do better. So it took us a long time to get here. It's not going to take us overnight to get out of it. It's a long-term plan, but we have to set high standards and lead by example. And encourage people to do better, because we all have phenomenal potential. And if we have confidence that our potential will be realized by the society that we build, all of us will be uplifted. So we have to build confidence by building a society where merit is the only arbiter of whether you succeed or not. Hard work is the only arbiter of whether you succeed or not. Aspiration is the only arbiter as to whether you succeed or not. Honesty is the only arbiter of whether you succeed or not. So our leaders have to lead by example. And when, irrespective of who you are, we are offside, we should be called out. Thank you.
One more question. In regards to the crime problem, that seems to be our main challenge. And I know the government is coming in with the zones of special operations. How confident are you that that will solve some of those issues?
Our national security advisor.
You want to answer that?
It doesn't matter. I mean,
Do you want to touch it? Touch it.
How confident are you?
Do you want it?
I mean, I think the zones of special operations and some of the other initiatives which have been announced have the capacity to make a significant dent, a significant impression on the crime situation. A lot is going to depend, as it always does, on how effectively they're executed. But I think that's the bottom line. The truth is, and the point was made earlier, that, you know, good ideas are dime a dozen, but those who execute them are priceless. And at the end of the day, I've found in my own experience that the articulation of a particular policy framework or a legislative framework or any type of framework, while essential, is not sufficient. At the end of the day, the effectiveness of it is going to be a function of how well it is executed. And so it remains to be seen. At the end of the day, like I said, I think that there are good plans, there are good programs, good strategies. It has won bipartisan support, which is an important starting point. And the most effective thing is for the execution to be effective and flawless, and I think we'll get good results. That's my perspective.